No, and it was and this is a personal thing, but it was a very challenging process. It probably took me like, I don't know, from the start of one of those, like, hey, I think I want to see a therapist, to the time I saw a therapist was probably like years. It was like,
Mhm.
because it was like, first I had to like, okay, I got to find a therapist. It's impossible to do. So I just kept putting it off. And it's like, once you start the search, it's like, okay, these, I don't know, these websites are just, I'm trying to find somebody in the area. And it's like, I don't know anything about this person. And that is like a big mental hurdle when you're like, I know I'm going to go into this and I have to divulge a bunch of personal stuff to a stranger. And that's a little bit of a paralyzing thought as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And then the third challenge comes in. It's like, okay, I found somebody. Is like, okay, the insurance policy work, and like, am I going to be covered? How much is the coverage? And so like, there's a lot of obstacles in terms of actually getting to the point of finding a therapist, and seeking that mental health
Mhm.
that help that you need. So that was a big challenge.
It's kind of I like in therapists like, and again, I'm if you want to go through BetterHelp.com, go for it. They're not an official sponsor, but there's something about when you kind of like find a physician or finding a trusted mechanic. Yeah, you may
Mhm.
go to different shops before you find that trusted mechanic that you trust with your car, and you know that they're going to say, "Hey, this is what you need." You know, hey, the alignment, blah blah blah, and you feel good about it, and you may have to go to different therapists. I went to a therapist. My employer at the time had these like 5 free visits to a therapist, and I was really just kind of in a dark place mentally. I was, lots of stuff going on, but I remember going to see his office was in this building, and on the bottom floor they were holding a drug addicts anonymous kind of meeting, because you could all these people were like, they were really just shaken up, and I felt sorry for him. I get up into his office, and in the waiting room there's people really having a bad time. This girl is just completely sobbing. This other guy was just like pacing and all upset, and there's other and all these things going on, and I'm just like feeling like, well, here I am with my stupid problems. Yeah, and I remember sitting there with this guy through these challenges, and I'm venting to the guy and telling him my problems, and I almost feel like I'm putting him to sleep, because he's about to deal with some real drama with the guy that's coming in after me, and I'm sitting there talking about how my dad didn't approve of me in foot when I quit football, that kind of thing. It's like that's like nothing compared to this avalanche of drama coming, but like, I do think it's what I lost about that at the time was the importance of me sharing it. I think a
Mhm.
lot of times that's where the health a lot of the help is you get it, you have somebody that's an expert, and they're going to give you advice, but sometimes just the act of speaking it out there is helpful. Would you agree?
Absolutely, because then, yeah, once you are able to share, there's a bit of a burden that's kind of lifted, and say, okay,
Mhm.
I acknowledge this situation, versus like, suppressing it when you're like, no, this is wrong, or I'm not supposed to be feeling this way. I think that's unhealthy in some respects. I think there's a bit of a balance, because I challenge my therapist always in this way. I'm like, I know that you guys are trained to say like, hey, your feelings are like valid and this and that, but I'm like, hey, if my feelings are not valid, I need you to tell me that this is bullshit that I'm saying right now,
Yeah.
and like, I'm being ridiculous. And so like, I also push back, and it's like my nature is like, I'm pushing back on the person that is the quote unquote expert, and saying, hey, I think there's some negative practices that are happening in mental health that I see, that it's like, oh, your feelings are the most important thing. Well, sometimes it is, but also, you have to be able to balance that with how these feelings are manifesting. It's not just like, oh, your feelings are valid. That's not the end of the conversation. It's like, well, it's valid, but then like, how are you going to project that to the world? That's also really important.
I think that's huge. Always remember, you are not alone. Catch full episodes every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.